the Appalachians when I lived out east, and we've done this, right? You've heard of mountaintop removal coal mining? Yes? This is what it looks like. And just, you know, if you can see down here at all, just to give you an idea, I mean, of how mammoth this destruction is. These are giant vehicles way down here, just to give you some perspective, right? See these vehicles? I mean, we have done this now to about 500 mountains in the Appalachian Range. This is strip mining in Wyoming for coal. So we blow up mountains and we also tear away at the surface of the earth. And these are the Alberta oil tar sands, which we've been hearing about because of the proposals for the Keystone Pipeline extension. This is what this industrial project looks like. This was once boreal forest in northern Alberta. And what they do to get to the oil tar sands is they strip off the top layer of the earth, they bulldoze down all the trees, strip off the top layer of earth to get down to these tar sands. And then they mine those sands. They start digging them up and they squeeze the oil out of the sands. It's a very heavy crude. It gets sent off through the pipeline to refineries. And what's left behind is this real toxic goo, this mess. Again, this is what oil tar sands mining in Alberta looks like. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your mind around stuff like this. There are people who say that this is the largest industrial project in the world. And certainly one of the dirtiest in terms of emissions and wasting of nature. Now I throw this in here because this is a little drawing of the state of Utah. And you just saw what tar sands mining looked like. Well, Utah has the unfortunate situation of having oil tar sands. And this is a map that comes out of one of these geological groups where it shows the oil shale and tar sand deposits in Utah. So this is all area that is in play in terms of developing this for mining. And this is a map that just shows the drawing of the Keystone Pipeline extension proposal. I mean, remember, this is an extension and expansion. The Keystone Pipeline already exists. And that's what the solid orange line is. That's what already exists. Now it's really interesting, this proposal is interesting because Hillary Clinton has declared this pipeline in the national security interest of the United States, saying this has to do with weaning ourselves from the oil that comes from more hostile countries. But here's the interesting thing. Almost all of the oil that's going to come through the extension down to Gulf of Mexico will not stay in the United States. What the company TransCanada really wants to do is ship this stuff off to Asia. And the most direct way to do that was to go directly west to the Pacific Ocean, of course. But because in Canada, the tribes in Canada, the indigenous tribes, actually have sovereignty. And in order to do that, they would have to pass over these sovereign lands, and the tribal leaders said no way. And so TransCanada is looking for another way to get this stuff to port and off to Asia. So actually, most of this oil that goes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico is not even intended for us. And this is what one of the refineries on the Illinois, this is the Mississippi River, Illinois, this is one of the refineries that's receiving the tar sands oil right now. So again, this is just huge, these are huge industrial projects that are going on. This, and I just run through this kind of quickly, you get a sense of where I'm going here. I'm just trying to show what it is that has fueled this amazing industrial expansion and this whole suburban and exurban lifestyle that we've all gotten used to. This is the Marcellus Shale. This is the Marcellus Shale runs for all the way through West Virginia up through Pennsylvania into New York, and it's full of natural gas bubbles deep down in the rock. And so this whole area is being opened up to drilling for natural gas, which is again very, very controversial because the process that is used for it is called fracking. I'm sure many of you have heard of fracking, yes? They drill down and they take water and chemicals and force the bubbles up and capture the bubbles, and voila, natural gas. Now again, to get an idea of what we're talking about here and the potential scale of this kind of development, what this map shows, all of the darker color, that red, is called shale gas plays. These are areas where there is shale gas. okay? And it's all over the place, right? I mean, any of these areas, again, here's Port Utah, but it exists also in Colorado. There's oil and natural gas shale that's beginning to be mined right out of the mountainsides. Wyoming as well. And this is what that looks like. We're starting to see these pop up all over the country, these natural gas wells. It's becoming part of our rural scenery. And this is the toxic goo that comes up from the drilling. You know, they force the water up, and they take the natural gas, but then you have this toxic stuff ends up in these pools that supposedly are lined, and none of this will ever get into groundwater. But you've probably all seen some of the scenes. It was on 60 Minutes and other documentaries where they show people turning the water on in their taps in some of these areas and putting a match to it, and because it's full of natural gas. Now, Wisconsin has a role in all this. We don't have natural gas here, we don't have coal here, we don't have oil, so we have to import everything into the state. But for natural gas development, for this drilling, for fracking, we do have something they really need. We have sand. And there's a huge industry that's opening up in western Wisconsin where they're doing this, sand mining. This is near the Menominee, out in western Wisconsin. And these are starting to pop up all over the western part of the state. And again, to give you an idea of the potential expansion of this industry, the green dots is where there's already sand mining for fracking going on. The blue ones, the blue dots, are where sand frack mining is in development. And the red ones are where it is being currently proposed. So there are large areas of the state of Wisconsin that are being opened up for this kind of mining. And this, I just thought I'd throw this in here since part of our reflection needs to be on our consumer lives here in our affluent nation. Struggling as we are, we still have an awful lot here. This is a rare earth mineral mine. Rare earth minerals are what we need for me to have this computer screen and our cell phones and our plasma screens and our lithium batteries are just some examples of what rare earth minerals are used for. They're not really rare, I forget why they call them that, but they're actually quite ubiquitous. And this is what rare earth mineral mining looks like. This is a mine in China. This is a mine in California. Again, gouging out the earth to make our consumer products. And this one I just had to throw in. This is the front page photograph in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel the other day. The Empire Mine, iron ore mine in Upper Michigan, which they put on the front page to give us a really good example of what it would look like if we opened an iron ore mine up in Hurley. You know, we got a pretty profound question here about whether this is really what we want to do to create jobs, right? And very quickly, I'm going to gloss over this very quickly, but it's important to just throw it into the mix in terms of the terribly wasteful use of resources. One of the things that is making a huge impact on the planet is industrial agriculture. Very, very wasteful, very destructive in terms of biodiversity, in terms of soils, uses tremendous amounts of fertilizers and chemicals, all of which need oil, and uses tremendous amounts of water. And so I just wanted to throw this in. We all know what a beautiful Wisconsin family farm looks like. It doesn't look like this, where you see these huge, huge operations, monocrops, huge machines, very few farmers, everything's mechanized, and it is very, very wasteful. So I wanted to throw that in because it's huge. This is a hog farm. We're seeing these huge livestock farms also that are growing up all over the place. Just another one in Wisconsin just got approval west for 4,500 dairy cows. Dealing with the waste, that's what those little ponds are. That's where the manure goes, right? And you end up with these kinds of problems of pollution running off of these fields. So this drawing then gives an idea. We saw the population growth, right, in recent years, and this shows right along with it has come our burning of fossil fuels. This is a drawing that shows the increase of fossil fuel burning from 1751 to 2005. So here's 1750, not a lot going on. 1800, not a lot going on. And then right around in here, 1820, 1830, the steam engine and railroads, and we start burning all kinds of stuff. And here we are in 1900, and we're still at maybe, what, this is million tons of carbon, we're still below 1,000 million tons of carbon. By 1950, we've gone up here, and look what happened in just 50 years. Again, this is the post-World War II industrial expansion. And it's what has fed this whole lifestyle we've all gotten used to. And for me, it's a really interesting reflection because this forms the whole context of my life. This is what I know, right? For any of us who were born from the, the baby boomers and on, this is what we know. This forms the span of my lifetime. And of course, global temperatures have gone up in the same direction because we do stuff like this. And this photograph, which to me, I show this over and over again and it still makes me gasp. This is air pollution wafting off the eastern coast of the United States. I mean, this is how visible this poisoning of our atmosphere is. So now we get to some images that I think help show where some of the moral responsibility lies. And again, if we're going to talk about global mission, if we're going to talk about mission in any way, we need to really think about who bears the moral responsibility for the crisis we're in right now. It's not like we did this intentionally. I always want to tell people guilt doesn't help. None of us set about when we were young to wreck the planet. That wasn't the goal. You know, why do we wreck the planet so I can have nice high-tech toys? It's something that just kind of happened. But now we do know, and we have to address what graphs like these tell us. Now, one of the things that, some of the folks that don't want the United States to take a leadership in cutting back carbon emissions will tell us, well, China's the biggest emitter right now. And China won't do enough, although China's actually right now doing more than we are. But the reality is, that yes, China as a country now emits more CO2 than we do into the atmosphere. That's what this graph says. This graph lists emissions per capita. And look where China goes. China's at the top. Look where it goes. The only one that's more than us is Australia. Australia has terrible problems with greenhouse gas emissions. So again, I mean, here we are. It's the United States, Canada, Saudi Arabia, and Australia outdo everybody in terms of CO2 emissions. And one of the things that's happening to the planet as a result of global warming that's being caused by all this is we're finding large areas of the planet are turning into desert. This is happening in China. It's happening in Spain. This is part of the wine growing area of Spain. About a third of Spain right now is in the process of desertification, which is just stunning to me. This is northern Africa. Here's an area that's turning into desert, right? This is Africa. And then for any of you who have had experience in Africa, I find this very sobering because this is a map that shows, sort of indicates the spreading deserts of Africa and what Africa has facing it right now. The darker the red is where the true desert is. And the yellow is where there's acute risk of desertification. So Africa's got some pretty serious problems ahead of it. And this again, this shows you what's going on in Spain. Parts of Italy are going through desertification. Actually, even up here in Germany, they're beginning to have problems. There are some people who say within 200 years, Bonn will be in a desert. You know, rain patterns are changing. Some areas of the earth are really, really drying up. So this is when we get to the really, really scary part. I need to share these images because I get so terrified. I need to share my fear. I have company, right? These next four images come out of a research institute called UCAR, the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. They provide a lot of research and data for universities. That's what they do. And they work very closely with NCAR, the National Center for Atmospheric Research in Boulder, Colorado. And what this map does, the colors show you, I mean, the areas that are drying and how intensely they're drying, that's what these colors are. And then the colors on the other side have to do with places that are moderate or getting wetter. And this gives you an idea of how much drying has been going on in the last 10 years across the globe. So you can see, we've got a problem in western United States. Western United States is drying out. Europe, the northern parts of South America. Okay, this is now what they project will happen in 2030 to 39 if this trajectory continues. Okay? But wait, it gets better. 60 to 69. And by the end of the century, 90 to 99. So there is this drying going on in large parts of the world. Doesn't mean it's not going to rain or snow anymore. It just means that the overall pattern is of less of it and of a gradual drying, actually a very quick drying in geological terms, over the course of the century, if things continue as they are. This is the trajectory if we continue on as we are. And then I think this is really interesting again, just in terms of bringing this back home to the United States. The U.S. Drought Monitor is a wonderful resource if you want to see what's going on in the United States in terms of drought. Farmers go to this all the time, right? This is the U.S. Drought Monitor for the state of Texas in April of 2009. And you see that Texas already has some pretty severe problems. You know, the brown color is exceptional drought. The red is extreme drought. I don't know what they're going to do to keep coming up with more scary terms. You know, extreme, exceptional, what comes after that? So that's what Texas looked like in April of 2009. And this is where it was 2.5 years later. Virtually the entire state is in exceptional drought at this point. This is September of this year. And of course we all saw images of what this meant in terms of forest fires in Texas. Now there are other impacts. Is this too much? Right. Be brave. There are other impacts. I mean, to me it's important to get a sense of the whole picture, right? One of the things that's happening out west, and this really breaks my heart because I love the mountain west so much. There's this little pine bark beetle that used to live up in Alberta in the forests. And every year it would come out and it would do a certain amount of damage, but it was sort of in balance with the environment. It would kill off some trees. It was just all part of, you know, the cycle. And then every winter it would get cold and they would die off. And then the next year you'd have the next batch. But what's happening is it doesn't get cold enough in Alberta to kill them off every year anymore. The result is they are proliferating. They don't die, they're just multiplying. And they've been traveling down through the Rocky Mountain West into the United States, and they are killing off the lodgepole pine and the ponderosa pine, all the way from Idaho down into Wyoming into Colorado. You can't believe it. The first time I saw this, so I had to look this up because it was amazing to me. The first time I saw this was flying to a conference in San Francisco in July 2008. And I'm flying over the mountains and I'm looking down thinking, what's going on down there? Why is it all so brown? And what I was looking at, as far as I could see from the airplane, was dying forest from this pine beetle. And among the things they're worried about, besides the fact that this is simply tragic beyond belief, is that as the forests actually die, it's leaving behind all this dead wood all over the place. Remember the year before last when Arizona had the big fires? And the firefighters were using this term super fire. It's something that most of them had never seen before. The fire was just charged. It was enormous. I have to shake it, actually. It was enormous. They'd never seen anything like it. And it's because there was so much dry